And boom,
we're here.
We are here. I'm Ernie Pack.
Denise Pack.
We're Packman Paranormal, and we are back. We're going to talk Bigfoot tonight. We've got the Bigfoot outlaw, Grizzly Chris, that we're going to bring in here in a minute. Hello.
Damien, where
Damien's
you been?
Back from
Eric,
exile.
we see you, and Bigfoot Outlaw is already up here too. Crystal
with the hurting brain. I didn't know you had one, but okay. No, it's good to see everybody. Good to be back. We are not going to have a show next week.
There's Rob.
And there's Rob's stash. Stash. Who is that guy? I don't know him. Anyway,
yeah, no show next week.
You guys can watch the Chiefs get beat, and then
I need to start bringing all these up.
Everything, life will be good. You're gonna start bringing up.
I'm gonna start bringing up comments.
Talk over top.
I'm gonna talk over top of you. I do it all the time.
I know. It's very unprofessional. I try to run a very tight ship here.
Damien said Ivy. I'm assuming he meant icy.
He did. But anyway, we're gonna have a good discussion tonight. We've got Grizzly Chris on. We had a little chat before we went live, and I think he's our people. He's right up our alley.
That's a sad thing for you, Grizzly, that you're our people.
But if you give me the mice, I'll go ahead and put him on here.
The mice.
The mices. Give me the mouse. There he is, the one and only Grizzly Chris. How are you, sir?
Doing fine. Thank you there. Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
Are you ready for this? It's obvious that we...
Oh, absolutely. I'm always ready. I always like to have a good time.
We don't really know what we're doing.
There's no script here. We're just sitting here with a Coke in front of us and random thoughts in our brain. But tell folks a little bit about yourself for anybody that doesn't know.
Yeah, retired captain detective. So been in the paranormal and Bigfoot cryptid world for probably about 15 years now.
That's awesome. That's a long time. We have not been in the Bigfoot world that long.
Nope. Bigfoot found us about...
Are you going to sit there and put on freaking lip gloss
while we're having the
show?
I think it was 2020. 5 years ago, January 6th, my birthday is when Bigfoot found us. So
yeah. Yep. It sure was.
That's how long we've been doing it.
There's Sarah, the boss.
The boss lady.
She's the boss. Rob is he's a peon with Get Haunted. But but what got you into Bigfoot?
Well,
I'm not going to bore you with the same old common questions, but I'll start out with a few of them.
We watch those TV shows, right? And it's like, what is out there? And I grew up out in the country. So everybody's a hunter. Everybody's an outdoorsman. And I never forget, my dad and I was deer hunting. And my dad was like, son, he goes, smell that? He goes, we just missed deer. And now I'm like, bull crap, Dad. That was not deer we just missed. And heck, hindsight, we didn't know the stuff, the tree structures, the tree bends, the breaks. We were oblivious to that. We didn't know until we start seeing these TV shows on TV. And we're like, shut the front door. You're like, really? That's what's making that? And we were out there in the woods playing cowboys and Indians and war. Come on. And you're like, wow. And then, you get reports of, like I did, you shot a deer, you had a good shot. You wait 30 minutes, you go out there and you see where it was laying and there's no other hunters and it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, where did it go?
Yeah,
because there's no drag marks.
Yep.
You shoot 180, 215 pound buck and it's just gone. Yeah. And there's a lot of things we couldn't explain until we start seeing these TV shows, because back then, the farmers didn't talk about it. The hunters didn't talk about it because it was a plague. If you had an encounter, you didn't talk to people in town about it.
Mm-hmm.
People thought you were crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. They really did.
Yeah. And Damien's asking, were you always a skeptic, or did you believe the stories? Like, so did you hear any stories growing up? I guess would be a good question, since we're saying that nobody really talked about it.
Well, if you stop and think, everybody back in the 70s and 80s thought it was a gorilla, some type of primate in the woods. And that was hard to believe, because if you remember, some of the gorillas in Africa and Amazons that weren't found until the early 90s, that they didn't know exist. And you think about America, one of the problems I had was, how can something that big exist and was not seen on a regular basis? And back then you had your flesh and blood and you had your woo, right? And it was one or the other. You couldn't be both. And they beat you up if you were one or the other. And if you weren't on their team, you were stagnated out. You were cast out. And it was just awful. So, you kept your beliefs to yourself. But then as the years went on, you stop and think, just like we talked back in the green room, the paranormal, the UFOs, Bigfoots, they were all separate. Everybody did not coexist with each other. But as years went by, the early 2000s, the mid 2000s, like you all out on a ghost hunt, and you all had an encounter, and the lines start crossing, the fields start crossing. And then the possibilities were like, wow, maybe there is some type of connections between the different fields, between the UFOs, between the paranormal and the Bigfoot group. And now, since we have people that are professionals that are out there, investigators, right? Somebody that's actually out in the woods doing their research and experiencing stuff that we do not understand, but we're rationalizing stuff and saying, what if? What is the possibility? Because if you figure something that's 7 foot or taller, how can it exist just like in Louisville, right outside Jefferson County in West Point? How can something like that exist but not seen on a regular basis? Where do they go? How do they go? We know there's 11 dimensions. Now the U.S. government says there's a possibility that there's up to 19 dimensions.
Right. And we see.
Now we got quantum physics, quantum mechanics. When I talk to, because Ron Moorhead's a good friend of mine, he's an admin in a couple of my Facebook groups.
We got to meet him a couple months ago. We got to film with him.
Yeah.
But you ask Ron, if you asked him back in the 70s and 80s, he would think you're nuts. But how can you explain something that you're tracking? You're an average deer hunter, and you know how to track something, right?
Right.
How can something start and end and just disappear? The tracks just stop out in the middle of a field, out in snowy tracks, no woods, out in the field or in the creek bottom, and they just disappear.
Yeah.
Well, it made a lot of people rethink about possibilities and made us think outside the box. And a lot of those people, and I hate to say this, that were stubborn back in the old ways of thinking, had to stop and rethink about their values and think, well, what is going on? What is actually happening? What is this creature, or whatever you want to call it, force people like Squatchman calls them?
Yeah. Right.
What are they capable of doing that our minds cannot, fathom or understand?
Right. Yeah. And we still encounter that now. People still will be separated into those different categories, but they're a little more respectful with discussing it now.
Yeah. You still got your hardcore flesh and blood folks, and a lot of them are very well known in the community, and highly respected. And I'm not going to take anything away from them, but what I will say is that those people don't seem to ever have any encounters.
No,
because they're out looking for this thing that doesn't exist. This North American primate does not exist. No.
Well, we know they're flesh and blood. They get shot. They know they bleed. We know that they can get hit by vehicles and die. So we had those encounters. We know that the law enforcement and the game wardens and the DNRs, they cover it up. We have reports of that. So we know they are flesh and blood, but they also have other capabilities that are far-fetched that we cannot understand. One of the things that we talked about, in the green room was that cloaking effect. And we know it as the common people know it as the predator effect.
Yes, that's how I always describe it, because I don't know how else to describe it.
That's right. Now, Sarah Shoup, she had a recording back in 2014. She had an iPod taped to her walking stick, and she had a group of people out in Washington, and she saw a flash. And when that flash happened, something ran in front of them. And they were like, "What was that?" And everybody's like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "You didn't see that?" They went back, they downloaded the footage. And when they played it back and slowed it down, you saw the creature look like alien, just like off the movie Predator, cloaking. And it had the shimmering effect and everything. And they sent it off to Hollywood. They tried to get it debunked. They couldn't get it debunked. We have it on our YouTube channel. We have it on her YouTube channel. I think it's SheriffShoup, youtube.com or whatever. But it could not be debunked, and everything was actually 100%. But then you have other people that are hunters that have that glimmer man effect, is what we see on Facebook and YouTube. They don't know what it is, and they call it the glimmer man. Yep. And we have accounts where, like you all say, they see this creature, supernatural being, in flesh and blood. Next thing you know, it glimmers and it just cloaks out. How can you explain that?
Exactly. Tell them about the day that they blocked off Fort Duffield over there.
Yeah, Fort Duffield used to be part of the Fort Knox military reservation.
Yes,
it's here at Fort Knox.
It borders Fort. I mean, Fort Knox wraps almost completely around it. And
hey, you lovely people in Ernie.
I don't like Russ Stiver. Hey, Russ. But I did not know that Fort Knox had its own Department of Fish and Wildlife until I went to Fort Duffield one day, and there was a Jeep blocking the road going back to Fort Duffield that had that on the side of it. Fort Knox, it was like Natural Resources and Wildlife or something like that. It's what it had on the side of it. And I said, "What's going on?" He said, "Park's closed for right now." I'm like, "Okay."
And this is a public park open to,
Yeah. And I said, "Okay." And so I left. I rode back a little bit later to see if it was open yet. Now there are like 5 classic black SUVs, like Suburbans, lined up the road, and it's still blocked off. And there was another person out there, and I said, "What's going on?" They said, "There's a dangerous animal here that we are trying to trap." And we have Black Hawk helicopters and all kinds of things going over up there. Now, we get reports every now and then of a black bear or even a cougar or something like that in this region. But they'll report it as a black bear or a cougar or something like that. They want to say a dangerous animal and shut everything down. But they did that. And
it was just very...
This happened to be in the same area where we've had a lot of Sasquatch sightings ourselves.
This was within like a month of us starting to talk about, we've got Bigfoot up there. We've seen Bigfoot up there. We started spreading the word, trying to get people to come up and experience it. And it was shortly thereafter that this all happened.
And then like about a month, less than a month later, Charlie Raymond, the head of the KBRO, got a report of one like 2 miles up the road that was on military property that all got squashed too. That whole story.
I just want to call this out.
He put his out.
I want to call this out real quick with everybody watching over here. Sarah's saying, grab those tickets for the extremeticketing.com for the Rock Island Roadhouse Esoteric Expo, October 4th, because we're going to be on a panel talking about Bigfoot. It's going to be us with Grizzly Chris, the SQs, Squatch Man, and Greg Bakken.
Yeah,
So
Greg Bachman will be there too.
this conversation will continue.
Yeah.
And we might have another little extra something in store there too. So
yeah. But you talk about how law enforcement and the government and everything will cover things up. You being former law enforcement, you know a thing about how that goes. And I don't know. Like you said, they can be flesh and blood, but then they can just, like you also said, just vanish into thin air, basically, and their tracks just disappear. And there's no animal on the planet that has those capabilities. So
no, there's not. And my favorite question to a lot of people, and I'll ask you this, and it's not a trick question: what color is a polar bear?
well, they look white to me,
but they're not. I know the answer to this, but I don't know the answer
shave
to
them down
this.
and they're pink.
No, they're black.
Are they black?
Yeah, it's the fiber optic hairs on them. They're clear, and they surround their hair follicles, soak up the surroundings. So if you look at the classic Sasquatch hair, what do we have the natural reports of? At the ends of it, it's clear, like fiber optic, right? So that's how we think that they can. And look, she's getting ready to pull out some hair samples.
This
Yes.
is from the one and only Squatch Man, which we've already touched it. He's got his own little set that he hasn't touched, but we just got a little bit of it so we could touch. We actually had this sent off, like a friend of ours. It wasn't like through
not that, but a portion of
it. I mean, it wasn't like all professionally done, but we had somebody that had some connections just to kind of look into it, and it came back a non-biological.
It was an unknown biological sample. It was a biological sample, but it did not have any correlations to any known database, any known animal database. What's that?
So what does that tell you?
Exactly.
It's something totally different.
Right. So we have eDNA, right? And we can test the water, soil samples, anything that's tracked through the waterways and water passages, and it still comes up the same way. And, in a court of law, and I use this as an example around campfires. If we have 20 people sitting around a campfire, I can take 5 people and take statements and go down and swear out a warrant against both of you all and win a case in a court of law. But how come I cannot do that with Bigfoot?
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So,
Good question.
Right? That blows people's minds.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I don't know. I mean,
this is going to be such a good panel. I can't wait for Rock Island.
Rock Island is going to be a good time.
Get Squatch Man there and all the other. It's going to be great.
We're going to have fun with it. But I don't know. We spoke at the Indiana Bigfoot Research Organization, their first convention last year. And in that crowd and of the other speakers and guests and everything that was there was a good mix of woo and flesh and blood, and then a sprinkling of, well, what if it's both? And
we did have a lot of people come up to us after our panel, though, that said, your talk really made me start thinking of it in another way. So I felt like we kind of inspired somebody to, we're not trying to change somebody's mind, but at least think beyond what you're already thinking,
Because like I told you in the green room, when we had our first encounter, I was scared to death that this thing was going to rip.
Scared.
Shut up. I'm telling the story. I was scared to death that this thing was going to come up and eat poor little Denise. And I didn't want that to happen because she had to do my laundry.
I was the one with the car keys.
Yeah, she had the car keys. So, I mean, we left. And, I was shaking a little bit. And then we were invited on we talked about that experience with Connie Willis, and she invited us on one of her live streams, and we did another expedition in the same area. And we saw what we were sure was a Bigfoot going through these pine trees, and Denise starts running after it, and Connie's like, go get her, go get her. That thing will kill her.
I'm always the one.
You know, I felt the same way. And then when we started talking with Squatch Man,
that's when we met Squatch Man on our second
live stream
with her is when we got introduced to Squatch Man, and we started understanding them a little differently.
Yeah, he said they're just people.
I never felt threatened, though. That's the funny part. From the very first experience, I don't really want to say unnerving, but I was uncertain. It was like, I'm not sure what I'm dealing with, because we saw something. We weren't real sure what we saw. Then we heard the big, huge, deep, guttural growl. And it was like, you knew it was like a warning. And even if you're not in fear at the time, you know when, okay, I'm supposed to stop.
This is close enough.
And I'm supposed to go back. So when we did the live stream after that, I felt like, because one of the things they told me, most of the time I'm the only female out there climbing around in the woods with these guys. I was the only female that night, and we were told that they like females. And but we saw him walking in and out of the trees, and I said, and I'm there with him and two other guys. I'm like, stay here. I'm going to see if I can get closer. They're like, what? I said, stay here. I'm going to see if I can get closer. And I got way far up there, and it was just kind of sitting there watching me, and I was coming closer and closer, and I'd stop. Then I'd go a little closer, and I'd stop. And that's when Connie freaked out. Go get her. It's going to eat her, blah, 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 blah. But when I got to a certain point, I felt that's close enough. It was like I was okay to come to a certain point, but it let me know when I was close enough.
Yeah.
So, but I've never felt threatened at all, ever.
And the thing that, you kind of alluded to it, they have these abilities, like we talk about the cloaking and things that just seem otherworldly and unbelievable, but they have the ability to mind speak with you and basically let you know, okay, that's close enough for whatever. And these are all things that were just like, way out there, crazy thoughts before I experienced it myself. And had I sat in my box of thinking this is a flesh and blood ape, I saw the $6 Million Man episode, that thing was evil, that kind of thing. If I had just stayed in that box of believing that way,
well,
none of this would have made any sense at all.
I think what made it a little more, obviously you spend enough time with Squatch Man, you become a believer, because that man he knows what he's talking about, and he will prove it. But I think what made it seem a little more real to us was when we had no idea anything about Bigfoot. I didn't even know about tree knocks. I had never watched the shows. Bigfoot was just, I didn't disbelieve it, but I was a ghost hunter. It wasn't my thing, and I didn't care, And so whenever I started having these experiences that he later confirmed were all things that Bigfoot does. And the kicker for me was the day we met Squatch Man. We were at a place, here close to us called Gates of Hell. It's a cemetery basically, but it's got the nickname around here in these parts as Gates of Hell. We were walking through the woods in the daylight, just trying to look at the terrain before he got there. And I look and I stop, and Ernie's like, what are you stopping for? I said, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I just saw what looks like predator running through the trees. And he just looked at me. He was like, okay. And I was like, I don't know. That's just what it looked like. And about 10 minutes later, we walk a little further. He stops and he goes, I just saw it too. Never in our wildest dreams.
No idea that that was a thing,
Squatch Man shows up, and we're talking, just sporadically. Well, what have you seen around here? Did you see anything today? I saw some weird thing. It looked like predator or something running through. Oh, you saw a shimmer squatch. Didn't miss a beat. So I was like, okay, I know I had an experience today, because I had an experience without having any preconceived notions in my head.
Right.
That's when I started really thinking, okay, there's something to this. And I want to address this because we actually talked about this before the show a little bit. do you experience the same amount of UFO activity as Sasquatch activity, or do you find one brings the other?
So there's a lot of questions about that, and we get a lot of reports. I probably have over 7,000 interviews underneath my belt, not counting shows. So you see a lot of people reporting either UFO activity before seeing Bigfoot or after seeing Bigfoot. And I think you all hear the same thing. But we never have any reports seeing Bigfoot coming out of a UFO. That doesn't mean it does not happen. So that's one of the pieces of the puzzle we're trying to still figure out. Because there are theories that people have in the Bigfoot community and the UFO community that think that the Bigfoots are slaves to the Greys. Now, I cannot prove or disprove that theory. I have no clue on that part.
Right.
Right. And Damien, from our point of view, every place that we've noticed that we have the most activity, and I'm not saying we haven't had activity in other places, just sporadically out, randomly, but where we
Indiana State Sanatorium.
when we have the most concentrated amounts of Bigfoot activity there, like Squatch Man's Forest is part of his forest is a place called UFO Mountain right there in the forest. Like we have a lot of that close to those areas. And I'm trying to make sure I get some of these, trying not to miss any of these. And Damien asked, do you think they understand language or thought? I do, Damien. I think they can understand, and I think they can communicate the way that they know you're going to understand. I think their intelligence is far beyond anything that any of us understand.
Yeah. Damien, to part of that, Squatch Man, he does not knock on trees. He does not do howls or anything like that. He walks out to the forest, holds his hands occasionally. If nothing's going on, he'll try to spur something. But for the most part, he'll walk out to the woods, hold his hands up, and talk to him.
Grizzly, have you ever been out with Squatch Man? Have you had the honor of
I just had him on shows and spoke to him a lot.
Well, you definitely, if
you need to get
you all get down here to one of these spirit squatches and stories around the campfire, and you will see him do his thing.
Yeah,
it's crazy, I know, but it's you stop at Damien and think of this. Look at canines. They know if you're a good person or a bad person, right? They can read your energy. So a lot of people think Sasquatch knows if you're a good person or a bad person as well. And they also know if you have good or bad intentions. A lot of people report that if you have firearms on you, they won't interact with you. That's false.
Exactly. Oh, you don't know. We've had him interact with us, but it's the intent of the firearm.
That is correct. Because when we go out locked and loaded like we're going out in the Vietnam jungle.
We go out when we go to Casey.
We don't have any problems with interactions at all.
Casey. Yeah.
So, but like you said, it's all intent, just like Denise.
Yeah, like if you're going out trying to hunt them, you're not going to see them.
You might wind up on missing 411.
But we do, depending on where we're going, if we're going to a remote location, we do carry because, you got to worry about your own safety.
That is correct.
The Sasquatch, but whatever else might be out there.
Rob says he's like Santa. He's like the Santa Claus of the Sasquatch.
Yeah.
That's Santa Squatch.
I mean, yeah, he does some magic out there.
Mm-hmm.
So, you keep talking about how you get reports and you interview folks. Let's talk a little bit about your show.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
So we cover any between paranormal, Bigfoot, UFOs, aliens, psychics, and we also have true crime cases, which we cover missing persons, cold cases, and unsolved cases. We have psychics that actually go into it blindly and use their abilities to try to help with the detectives and police departments to help missing puzzle pieces. To put those together to help solve some of those cases.
You've actually been involved with some of that, haven't you?
I haven't been involved with missing persons. I've been used many years ago. There were, I guess, just the satanic rituals or something taking place in a park. And I don't think all of it was satanic. I think there was like a good versus evil type thing, which obviously was a bunch of weirdness with all these people out in the woods doing these rituals, regardless of how you put it. But I somehow got pulled in by the police department to come out and investigate some of the locations where rituals had happened to see what I found and what I thought. So, but I've never done a missing person.
Because you were a noted Satanist who knew everything about
There you go.
Shut up.
Not because you were psychic, but because you were crazy.
I'm going to show him how crazy I can be. This camera will quit rolling here shortly. He told me the next missing 411. The Squatch made me do it. Have you heard of, and this was something we didn't know till we were out with Squatch Man actually, that just like a spirit that can follow you home from a haunted location, that the Bigfoot can also?
Yeah, so we get a lot of reports of families and people that gift these creatures or spirit beings, however you want to call them, forest people, that they'll move cities or towns, and they would actually follow them to the new location. And that's crazy to believe that, right? Because years ago, I would draw a line in the sand and be like, anything up to this line, anything after, I'm not going to believe. It's just nonsense. And I kept doing that. And I was like, I'm not drawing lines in the sand anymore, because hundreds of people had the same encounter across the United States. They're not fabricating. It's actually happened. And then we also have reports that if you are real good with the Bigfoot in California and you go to Georgia, they talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's like, how is that possible? They're like, no. And then you go out with them and they never been to Georgia and there's no Bigfoot in the area. And next thing you know, they have encounters. How is that possible? It's like this clan talks to that clan, right? It doesn't make any sense, but it happens. How is that possible? So, anymore, I don't discount anything. So it's just, I'm very open. However, with my law enforcement, I have a lot of certifications in interviewing and with the FBI and the ATF. So I can tell when somebody's telling me the truth or not.
That's what Damien's actually asking there with working in the police force. Do you think this has an impact on your investigatory?
Oh yeah. I've actually offered people to take a polygraph test before.
Yeah.
I don't mind if you come on my show and give me a bunch of bluff, and I'll call you out. I'll administer a polygraph test for you.
Well, I'd be happy. We would take one gladly on that epic encounter we had. Memorial Day weekend of 2020?
Yeah.
Memorial Day weekend of 2020.
It's just experiences. Like when we start telling people some of the experiences we've had, it sounds so crazy. It's like, even when we're talking to people that we know are on the same level as we are with dealing with this stuff, it sounds so crazy that we feel like we sound crazy. It's like, we gotta be careful how much we're telling people.
Yeah, it is. And I'll be honest with you, when you first are trained in how to interview people, and it's amazing because you will actually lose a lot of friends because the simple techniques you learn, you're like, shut the front door. And and it's just like when I have normal conversations with people, I'm actually interviewing them, and I can tell what part of the brain you go to fabricate stuff. I can tell you what part of the brain you go to for memory, and it is just interesting. And I can just ask you simple questions like, last Wednesday, what'd you have for breakfast? And just normal conversations. I can just start building my memoir. So when I do ask you specific questions, I can pick up exactly. Nope, you're fabricating. Nope, you're not telling me the truth. You're not telling me the whole truth, just like Democrats, right? I had to plug that in.
We are,
but and unfortunately, that's why I'm divorced, and it's just like it's hard, and a lot of people when they come on the show, they'll tell you, you got to be careful if you're not going to tell the whole truth or fabricate anything. Grizzly's he's gonna nail you on it, and we want people that actually have real encounters to come forward, because it gives courage to people to see that, be like, oh, so I'm not the only one. And, they did have experience. So, that's something that I have that gives them courage to come forward. And that's a whole lot, because that gives other people a chance to tell their stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, Damon says, I don't know, I had long last Wednesday.
Yeah.
Very good with jogging memory, Damien. I can bring up some of your past memories. Very simple. I know how to do that too.
You be afraid to get in this mind, Grizzly.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Hey, some people's minds, I'm like, shut the front door. I don't want to go back.
This one.
But it's sad because and I can explain more off air, but it's sad because a lot of people we know in the community, as we talk, I'll be like, they're not telling the truth. What the hell? And it's like, that's sad.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants their fame. Everybody wants their YouTube channel. Everybody wants to be famous. It's like, you're not making money at this, right? I got more money out of my pocket doing this than what I'm making, ladies and gentlemen. They don't understand the equipment, the costs, the fees.
Yeah.
It's outrageous. The travel expense, the hotels, and it's nuts, isn't it?
And it's funny. I mean, like we said, we live in supposedly Kentucky's most haunted house, and we put things out every once in a while. We do have some equipment sitting around just for our own interaction, and then we do have people come here occasionally. But you don't see a whole bunch of evidence from us because we don't have anything to prove. We don't care. I mean,
we know. I mean, I know some of the biggest names in the paranormal. That, if you're thinking that you're going to make money on the paranormal, well, these people ought to be making money on the paranormal,
and they're still working,
and they're working a day job. I mean, they're not making money on the paranormal.
Right.
There's not money in this business unless you just happen to be that one in a million that, and gets lucky. The Sam and Colby people,
but they do
people like that.
But Sam and Colby are full of shit. I'll be the one to say it.
Well,
there you go. So, but I mean, it's like, I'm not trying to get, I mean, we all want to be rich, but I'm not trying to be rich or famous. I'm just doing my thing because it's what I do. And, honestly, I don't want a camera in my face 24/7. I wouldn't want to be on a show all the time. I mean, we love our friends, Brandon and Mustafa and Kevin from Haunted Discoveries, filmed with them multiple times.
You always forget Craig. I'm going to Craig.
We love all them guys, and they're welcome here anytime. But just having them here for a day or two is exhausting. And I'm just like, when it's done, I'm done.
And Denise, you said it right. You could not take a non-believer and turn them into a believer unless you go out in the woods and they actually had their own experience, either with paranormal or with Sasquatch or Bigfoot, whatever you want to call it. Right. That's the only way. I mean, you're not going to convince somebody just by having a show or talking to them.
Right.
Once they're set in their ways, it is. And that's what we do on our shows. We're not here to convince somebody's mind. But, when we do show evidence, we're very critical about showing evidence. Mm-hmm. And we do shows on how to teach people how to collect evidence, especially out in the Sasquatch world. Physical evidence, because I did collect evidence for years for the police department. So we teach techniques and so forth, chains of custody and what to use, what not to use. So it's not, contaminated and so forth, because, you want your stuff to be credible, right? Because we look at the totality of the circumstances, which means everything as a whole. I got Bigfoot in my backyard. Well, what makes you think that? Well, just because you have a tree break doesn't mean you have Sasquatch, right?
Yeah. Well, you did have a friggin' F2 tornado come a mile down the road last month.
And we are, and even he and I sometimes will argue amongst ourselves here. He'll be like, "Did you hear that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I heard the heater kick going." He's like, "No, before that." I'm like, "It was the stuff gearing up to get the heater kick." Right. We argue about that all the time.
Yeah. Now it'll be different if I was like, Ernie, Denise, I think I got Bigfoot in my backyard. And you're like, why? Well, because I've been actually investigating this area for 6 months. I hear howls, I hear screams, I got footprints. I'm starting to see tree breaks, tree structures. I'm starting to collect hair. Now you're starting to build something. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Totality, right? Now you got something credible.
Exactly.
So, yeah, absolutely. And just like we were talking about earlier about orbs, years ago, we heard people talk about orbs and woods and what are they? We know energy cannot be created or destroyed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now, 5 years ago, we people said, well, Bigfoot or orbs. And, we were like, yeah, right. Okay, whatever. All right. It's a new one. And then you start interviewing people, and these deer hunters will be like, Grizzly, I was up in a tree stand and I see this orb and it's going crunch, crunch, crunch. And all of a sudden, Bigfoot popped out. And I'm like, shut the front door. And he's like, no, nothing happened. And then a week later, a guy in Alabama is like, Grizzly, you ain't gonna believe what I saw. And I'm like, what? You're like, Bigfoot turning a damn orb right in front of my damn tree stand. How about crap? And I'm like, what? I'm like, do you know so and so? He's like, who's that? And then you start getting his reports. You're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Maybe there is something to it.
Yeah.
That's there is. They're tied to something.
Yeah.
It's like people are not crazy. So, I take that back. There are some are crazy.
Yeah, there's some crazy people out there.
Mental health is an issue in America. Don't get me wrong.
We quit doing residentials because of the crazies.
Yeah.
Oh no, man! No, oh yeah. I quit doing that years ago. Yeah.
We made the mistake of trying to do one because children were involved like about 3 years ago. Never again.
No.
Damien wants to know what are our weirdest experiences that falls in between everything. What would you say your weirdest experience would be?
Oh, that's hard because there's so many of them, right?
They're all weird.
So the most recent one, I don't know. I got so many. So Mary, so I put up some trail cams behind the house, like 50 of them, right? Okay. And I had these damn things strategically placed. So when things walk, I can trail it. Just like if you go to Kroger's, I can trail you from the front door to every aisle. Whatever item you pick up, I can watch you. And when I was done watching the footage after 7 months, I was puzzled because it was the lack of evidence. And because in Sector 2, I would have 4 trail cams on a tree, right? North, south, east, and west. But when the north cam went off, the south cam on Sector 4 should have picked it up as well, right? It didn't. So I went through 3 weeks with papers and pens and doing all this. And it was like something was going through there, pointing at the cameras going, turn off, turn on, turn on. And it was shutting them down. It didn't make any sense. It was a lack of evidence. But I had something walk up and Mary saw it, freaked her out. Trail cam was 6 foot off the ground. It looked like a white Sasquatch. Walked right up to it to see what the hell it was.
Really?
And that night, I don't know what walked up to it. It looked like, I'm not going to say what it looked like, but it had long hair and it wasn't a Bigfoot. So what does that tell you? It could have been
Dog man.
Yeah, it scared them. And they wanted me to go camping out there.
That's a big no.
Nuts? Like, hell no.
Oh, come on.
Those things will rip you to pieces, I think.
So
we just need to understand.
Can I pet that dog, man?
Yeah, right. And then I've got the sky rods in December flying in front of the trail cams. And I never saw a sky rod in Kentucky because I lived around outside Louisville at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, my buddy's like, that's a bug. I'm like, on December 23rd, I said it's 12 degrees outside. That's not a bug. That's a sky rod. Because I slowed it down and it was about that big. And it flew in front of the trail cam. I'm like, what the hell is that? Because scientists don't know what they are. Give me a sleep bag and some doggy treats.
I'm with you, Damien. Let's go.
Damien's from Scotland. He's not right in the head. He's really not.
What would you say your weirdest experience would be? I think it has to be that
meeting you. No.
Does everybody see this?
I'm looking at Mary. She's looking at me laughing. No comment. I gotta go to bed tonight.
He's gotta go to bed tonight too. I hope he sleeps well.
No, probably. I'm gonna leave Brushy Mountain for you to talk about. and I will talk about that epic experience with Squatchman that night. Where this was one of our first nights out with Squatch. We'd been out with him maybe twice before.
We'd had a few what we considered epic experiences just because we had actually seen Sasquatch. To us, that was an epic experience, which I'm sure to most people that would be an epic experience. We weren't expecting.
We were not prepared for this. Squatchman was getting ready to move to Washington State and thought that might be his last night in what he calls his forest in southern Indiana.
Right.
And so we were getting ready to start a live stream for Connie Willis, and it hadn't started yet, but we'd all gathered there, and her daughter Cora was with us. And Squatchman walked out to the edge of the forest. He raised his hands. He said, "My friends, this might be my last night here with you. I'm moving far away. I might not get to visit with you again. I hope you'll come visit me. And I'll try to come visit you sometime. But for tonight, can you make this a night to remember? Can you do something epic for me?
Epic.
I beg of you. Please, please do something epic for us tonight."
He said,
Thank you.
Make this forest
come alive. And, Denise and I, that was the first time we'd seen him do his, talk to the forest with his hands up.
And we're like
and all that.
giving each
We're
other
looking at each other like this
we're
guy's
going to
nuts.
like one of these.
Well, about 10 seconds after he finished talking, we hear boom. Huge tree falls about 150 yards off that way. 10 seconds later, boom. Huge tree falls over. A total of 7 trees fell
in a circle
around us within about a minute and a half. And they were all a safe distance away. But there was no wind. There was no reason for that. And these were huge trees. These were not little saplings. These were big Indiana red oaks.
We were able to see one that was right across the road, which was the road out.
Yeah, it was a one-way road going through this forest.
And it had fallen and hooked on the other one across the road. And it was huge.
It wasn't that huge.
The bottom of
the root wad was that big.
Was huge.
But it was probably pretty about that big around, I guess. Maybe 14, 16 inches around. And it was wedged in another tree, kind of forming an arch across the road. And, we were like, wow, that took some power. Whatever did that was powerful. And
it started sprinkling. So Cora and I got
started
back
sprinkling
in the
a little
van.
bit. Yeah, her and Cora got back in the van, and Squatchman and I were standing out there at the edge of the road looking at it. And, he's like, "Man, I can't believe that happened." And I said, "Well, you asked him to do something epic." And he said, "Yeah, you're right. I guess I did." Then we're just sitting there giggling and talking, and we look up, and the tree that other one is wedged in, about 10 feet above where the one tree was laying across, you see this big black mass.
I hear on the back of the van, they start beating
on the back of the glass.
We jump
thing
out,
is up in the
around.
tree, like hugging the tree and shaking that other tree. Finally, the limb that was holding this tree broke, and it fell to the ground, blocking the road, blocking our way out. Now, when you think about it, Squatchman had said, I'm leaving. When I leave tonight, I might not be back. They blocked his only way out.
Yeah,
basically, we had to go wrong way on the one-way road to get out of there.
Yeah.
But that was just, when you explain that, when you tell that story to other people, they're like, "Yeah, you're full of shit."
When you ask, when we get my daughter near us, and I'm like, "Cora, you tell them about that night," because she doesn't do this a lot. She's like, "I don't want to talk about it," because she was so scared.
Yeah.
And so a tree was going to fall on her. So
yeah, she was
like, "I want to just get back in the car. I just want to get back in the car."
Can we just leave? Can we just leave? But
we're asking about different accents and languages, and they do. And when I was up in Michigan, they spoke native tribe languages, like OCO and everything. And when I was filming and they were talking to them, And they're like, Grizzly, it's your turn. And I didn't know what to do. So I went, ooh. And everybody looked around like, what the hell, Grizzly? What are you doing? You're all talking. That's what came to my mind. And man, you talk about the woods going quiet. Oh, it scared the hell out of me. They're like, whose heart is that? I'm like, it's mine. I'm going to have a heart attack. I heard a needle drop, because they got. Can you imagine Bigfoot out there like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, run, boy.
Yeah, right. And Salt Fork. If y'all never been to Salt Fork, that is a crazy place to go.
We need to go.
Last year, we had one. I thought it was what's that guy with the damn rubber chickens?
Rob Stack
Curtis. I thought it was Curtis at 2:00 in the morning pressing on my tent. I was like, damn it, Curtis, stop it. And I got looking, and it was rubbing the side of my tent. And I was like, oh my God. And when it pressed on it, it was a hand, but it was like so big in the fingers. It broke my tent pole on my pop-up tent. And I was trying to wake up Thomas. Well, evidently I was screaming like a woman because I woke up the whole camp.
Hey,
to the other end.
Like an Ernie.
Yeah. I never saw a hand that big before. And I was like, what the hell? I was trying to reach for my heater. You know what I'm saying? Because that was how scared I was. But I guess I never felt a tent before because they would walk up at camp at night and take your food. I mean, it's just crazy. Yeah. Crazy. I went up there last year to debunk it. They invited me up. They're like, man, you got to come up here. And I was like, whatever. And they were like, man, they come up, they shake your vehicles, they take your food. I'm like, shut the front door. And man, it's just crazy.
Write this down.
Salt Fork.
Yeah, we got a camping trip in April coming up. And we do a lot of filming up there. And they come up, scream, holler. They had me in stitches last year. One come up at the other end of camp. Stood there, screamed at some campers, and it looked like a lynch mob, man. They got torches, ran around in circles, and you know what to do. It scared the hell out of them. I mean, it's just crazy. That's how active they are.
Is that in Indiana? Is that
Ohio?
Ohio. Okay.
Yeah, and they know about it. They publish it in the papers, and at the community center, they sell Bigfoot paraphernalia.
All right.
Yeah.
Then. Yeah, we'll have to check that out.
We definitely need to check that out.
Yeah, it's off the charts there.
What was that guy?
That's where Mary's going in April. That'll be her first experience.
That's fun for her.
Nice.
I need to go up there and talk to him. I'm going to send you a picture after the show, or I'll do it now while I'm thinking about it. Going back to when we were talking about, and we're
following you home.
Yeah, following you home. I can't get all up in the. We're not tech savvy enough to put it on screen if we don't already have it loaded up there. Let's see here.
I was going to say something else, and you caused me to lose my train of thought.
Oh, what's new?
Imagine that.
What's new?
No, you were talking about the hand and the size of the hand. I've got a picture of a handprint on the back of our van from Gates of Hell. One of the nights we were at Gates of Hell, and that thing, I mean, that hand from the base to the fingertip is probably, I don't know, 13 inches or so.
Yeah, it's huge. And the fingers, when I saw it press on the tent, was probably at least that long for the
and it's big around as a fat cigar or something.
Yeah, because at first I thought it was Curtis because they like to play jokes on me, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when I saw the indention and I saw how big the hand was, it freaked me out.
Yeah.
We camp right next to the woods. That's how close our tents are.
Yeah.
And when it pressed on it, I didn't know it broke my tent post because, like I said, I lost it. I ain't going to lie. Yeah, it scared the hell out of me.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But I guess it wouldn't be scary if all you have is a little nylon tent. I'd be saying, Ernie, get up here and see what he wants.
Yeah, give him a high five.
I would have imagine stand up and say, hey. Oh, I would have to touch. I would have to put my hand up there and touch. I'd have to see what it felt like.
See if you pick up that energy.
I would have to.
No, I would have passed out. I ain't gonna lie, I would have passed out.
have you heard in all the discussions you've had with people, have you heard about the concept of being zapped or
Yeah,
the
infrasound.
jolt
Yes.
thing that they give you?
He got zapped.
Yeah, there's been a couple people that associated, they claim, but they cannot prove it medically, that they lost their lives to it, whether it caused heart complications or ruptured their internal organs. If you stop and think, law enforcement use infrasounds on their sirens. Indiana's one of them. Floyd County uses them that vibrates your body. If you got your music on, you'll be like, what is going on? It makes you look in your mirrors to let them know that the police cars are coming. It's been around for a long time. We know different animals use them as well. A lot of people get the feeling that they're getting like seasick or rocking feeling, and they get dizzy, lightheaded. And a lot of people also get very violently ill, vomiting as well. Some people reported being actually unconscious.
Yeah.
So that actually happens. So yeah, it's I don't know why or they do it. I don't know if it's a defense mechanism they use to keep you away.
I think it could go. I think they could use it both ways, because I'll tell you, we were up in Squatchman's Forest. Greg Bakken was up there with us, who does the Spirit Box.
He's going to be on the panel with
us. And we were walking out of the woods, and I wasn't feeling so good. I hadn't been feeling good since before we went there, but I wasn't feeling too good. It was during the middle of the Save Waverly thing, I think, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of run down and exhausted and not feeling good. And we were walking back from the gifting stump, and this jolt just went through me and knocked me to my knees.
And it's like they knew they had given him too much because he felt them.
And, I'm down on my knees.
I'm not going to tell your story for you.
I'm down on my knees, and I'm like, just dazed, like, what just happened? It was like somebody hit me over the back of the head with a freaking hammer or something. And I feel this huge hand in the middle of my back, and then just this wave of energy that was like a positive, it was like rejuvenating, it was like, and I'm like, whoa. And I stood up, and I'm like, because everybody, Greg had stopped. He's like, man, are you okay? Denise, Squatchman, everybody stopped. Like, what's going on? And I stood up, and I'm like, I'm good now. And Greg's like, what happened? What happened? I said, I don't know. I got freaking jolted, zapped, whatever. And then I had felt his hand on my back, and all of a sudden I was fine, and I feel good. I feel better than I did when we got here.
I theorized that I think they were trying to help him, and they gave him just a little too much. It was like, oh, my.
I mean, I can't explain it, but I mean, that is what happened. And then Greg got out the spirit box, as he does.
Yeah.
And he said, why did you do that to Ernie? And this voice comes through that says he needed it. And I mean, just clear as day and clear as a bell right away. He needed it. And I'm like, well, thank you. And I mean, I don't know. I just know that that's what happened. I can't explain the ins and outs or the whys or anything of it, but that's what happened. And it's I don't know. I've got a whole different perspective on what these beings are. I think they're protectors of the forest. I think they're protectors of anyone who's out there with them with good intentions. And I don't think that they're anything to fear anymore. And that sounds very hippie-ish or whatever, but But
I do think that if you go out there with the wrong intentions, that they will rip you to shreds.
Well, we got a lot of reports of that happening, especially in Alaska.
Yeah.
We also have reports, though, too, that people that are terminally ill, right, go out there and ask for help, and they get cured somehow, and the doctors cannot understand why that happens.
Yeah.
I know, going back to the Save Waverly Hills days, it took it was 3 years of us fighting all the time, and we were both beat down. And I felt like I couldn't handle anymore. And I went out there and I was like, I just need some help. I just need you to just lift me and give me some energy. And I felt like they listened. Like I felt like it was almost like a guardian angel almost, if that makes any sense. Like I just felt like it would give me just a little extra oomph to be able to, okay, I can do this a little bit longer.
Right.
It's, I don't know. For anybody watching right now, I know that we look crazy right now with some of the things we're saying, but I mean, get out in the forest and experience it with us sometime, and you'll see what we're talking about. It's 10 o'clock. Do you want to wrap up, or you want to go on a little bit, or what do you want to do?
Whatever y'all want to do. I greatly appreciate the chance to be on your own show.
Well, we appreciate having you.
Yeah, this has been a good conversation.
Yes.
It's nice to talk to someone who can converse because you know what we're talking about. You know?
Yeah. We're not just saying stuff and you're sitting there going, oh.
Yeah, right.
But so yeah, October 4th, we're going to have this panel at the Rock Island Esoteric Expo, and we're going to be talking about a lot of the same stuff.
But we'll have more insight because we'll have more people there.
Input from Todd and Leanne Eskew. We'll have Squatchman. We'll have Greg Bakken. It's going to be, that's going to be an interesting panel, I think.
And we're working on a couple of other extra little things to go with it that Grizzly don't even know about. We'll discuss that with you after the show. We don't want to put anything out there yet.
Maybe we might be able to get out in the woods a little bit while we're up there.
We don't know. We don't know.
Maybe we might.
Hush.
I'm hushing.
You got a big mouth.
We might.
You got a big mouth.
We might.
You got a big mouth.
I'm teasing. That's called a teaser. You don't know nothing about broadcasting, do you? That's a teaser.
See what I deal with all the time. You see who the brains of this operation is. You see who the brains of the operation is here.
But I don't know. Is there anything else you want to talk about in particular? You want to promote anything
coming up?
Anything?
Yeah, if you want to check out our network, it's Bigfoot Outlaw on YouTube. So, and Grizzly Chris on Facebook. So yeah, I appreciate it.
Crystal told you to hush too. See?
Well, Crystal is not the boss of me.
But I am. Hush.
You're laughing.
Hey, quit giggling. I hear you back there giggling. But well, he made that awful quick. I was hoping he, but I was like Grizzly Chris and YouTube and blah blah blah.
We hope to see some of you folks at Rock Island. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, and come and join us for one of these spirit squatches and stories around the campfire.
Yeah, event. For anybody that hasn't noticed our ticker going across the bottom, we're going to have our next one March 29th. We're going to be putting tickets out up.
Yeah, we'll get a ticket link put together probably tomorrow for that.
Yeah, and then we'll be advertising that. So, and
also we have the Trifecta Experience coming up May
1st. I mean, May 31st. May 31st.
At Fort Duffield and here at the Ditto House. So you can find information on that.
That is on
extremeticketing.com. It's up available right now. Tickets are up for sale. The VIP tickets are already sold out for that.
Yeah.
And other tickets are starting to go pretty quickly too. So get in on that while you can. We're going to wrap it up, I guess.
There's a train coming.
There's a train coming, so we got to wrap it up before the train gets here. What the hell does that have to do with anything?
I just said there's a train coming. I don't know how you felt that you needed to include that in anything.
Well, you said it. I was talking about other stuff, and you said there's a train coming.
Yeah.
You hear that? There's a train. Okay. So yeah, we have trains, folks. Welcome to America. But anyway, we'll be back week after next. Like I said, we're gonna take next week off because everybody will be watching the Super Bowl and cheering because the Chiefs got stomped, hopefully. And then they'll be drunk and they won't want to watch Denise.
I just moved all of that
and tear down our camera setup. They won't want to watch that.
There we go.
We are a very professional team, folks. Remember that. I'm going to end this. Grizzly, I'm sorry. I apologize for having.
It's been great.
But anyway, folks, we love y'all. We appreciate you tuning in. Come back and see us in 2 weeks
And come
when
to
our
us at
guest will
Rock
be
Island.
someone not nearly as cool as Grizzly Chris. I guarantee they won't have as cool a beard. So there.
Love you, Eric. Good night. Bye.
We love y'all. Y'all take care, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye. And we're